A credible witness, Kellyanne?
Is Sondland a credible witness? I guess. I don't know. In other words, as opposed to whom? The other ones that you're cherry picking? I mean, is Volker a credible witness? Do you take? Well, I'm asking you. When Congressman Lee Zeldin, who's on the committee and is in the room, says so then you're saying to Ambassador Volker, in no way, shape, or form was there any quid pro quo, and Volker says what you just said, quote, correct. Is he a credible witness?
So my question is, the president has
exactly.
never Trump. Can I ask you about Kellyanne, let's be clear. Kellyanne, we're not done. Kellyanne, no, we're just finishing this exchange.
Well, it takes two to tango, so I'm over here now. Go ahead.
I'm asking the question, which is the president said that two individuals were never Trumpers, Bill Taylor and Alexander Vindman.
He does that to women all the time.
That those men are never Trumpers.
I didn't even know what you're asking about.
The president said that Alexander Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman.
So here's the evidence I'm looking for.
So what evidence is there that they are never Trumpers?
I'm asking a question of you.
I'm the reporter, so I'll ask
why do you care?
Why are they?
Exactly. What evidence do you have that the president should be impeached? Let's start with what we're talking about.
I'm asking the question.
If you're going to say bombshell,
why would the president?
White House engulfed in crisis. What evidence do you have that the President of the United States, who's democratically elected, and I'm sure you didn't vote for him or predict that in fact, I know you didn't predict he'd win. I know you're not going to vote for him next time, respectfully. I'm not going to call you never Trumper, but what evidence do you have that the democratically elected President of the United States should be thrown out of office and removed based on the testimony of people who you hadn't even heard of weeks ago? Answer me. Tell the country why you think.
For decades in some form
why you think.
On what basis does the president say he is a never Trumper and that Alexander Vindman is a never Trumper?
So Alexander Vindman is Lieutenant Colonel, who I stood here and has said on TV several times, I don't question his patriotism at all. What I question is him saying my interpretation was this. Why does it matter? That's like saying your interpretation matters.
So
it doesn't.
The president call him a never Trumper on the basis of what?
That's what this is about now?
No, I'm just asking. The president made a declarative.
So is NBC covering that this is an impeachment inquiry, or that we're asking people how they voted?
I'm just trying to hold the president accountable for statements he's made.
No, you're not. You want the president impeached, and you don't have the goods.
Here, Kellyanne is clearly not satisfied with a decidedly valid question from NBC News' White House correspondent Peter Alexander, and that's to know on what basis Trump calls Bill Taylor and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman never Trumpers. And yet, instead of answering the question, she starts asking him questions instead, because apparently that's how accountability works in the Trump era. In the middle of him asking his question, Conway starts off on a tirade about how she's certain that the reporter didn't vote for Trump, which tells you everything you need to know about how this administration views the press. When other presidents got critical coverage, which, despite this administration's victimhood complex, they all did, including Obama, none complained that reporters didn't vote for them in the last election or that they weren't receiving exclusively fawning coverage. But that's all this administration cares about. You're either on the Trump train or you're not, even if your job is to simply report the news. And so because Kellyanne is convinced that Peter Alexander isn't working to advance Trump's agenda, she took it upon herself to start attacking him and having him answer questions. But here's the thing. Our tax dollars don't pay his salary, but they do pay hers. She is accountable to us, and in turn, she answers the questions posed to her. Because, and this might come as a surprise, we don't pay her to pretend to be a reporter. We pay her to pretend to be an advisor. Now, eventually, the NBC News reporter is able to get to his question and asks what the basis is for Trump's declaration that Taylor and Vindman are never Trumpers. And Kellyanne does the only thing she knows how, which is to pivot to something else. She claims instead that it's absurd for the president to be thrown out of office and removed based on the testimony of people that we hadn't heard about weeks ago. In other words, because Alex Vindman and Bill Taylor, and while we're at it, Fiona Hill and Marie Yovanovitch and Gordon Sondland aren't famous, that somehow their testimonies don't count. But because they're nonpartisan officials and not scapegoats that the White House and Fox News can demonize, they're having trouble discounting their testimonies. And the reason for that is that there's nothing to discount. We've now heard from witness after witness, read in complaint after complaint, that Trump attempted to extort Ukraine into smearing his top political opponent by leveraging previously allocated military aid. Trump admitted that his hope for the call would be an investigation into Joe Biden. He even showed up on the White House lawn and suggested into the camera that China should open a probe into Biden. It doesn't make Bill Taylor and Alex Vindman never Trumpers because they can admit that, it makes them honest. Although, when you think about it, honesty does kind of disqualify you from this White House. So Trump and Kellyanne can continue to attack everyone who doesn't do their bidding as being part of the deep state or never Trumpers or some Hillary Clinton, George Soros funded cabal in the basement of the Capitol, but what it actually shows is just how desperate they've become.